Hi, and welcome to the presentation on writing for this course. I'm a firm believer that if a course in the humanities teaches you anything, it should teach you to write clearly. Writing clearly is a needed skill for any of the white-collar jobs that college is supposed to prepare you for. Clear writing is also a necessary skill for the sort of deep thinking that we do in philosophy classes. So there are two basic sets of assignments in this course that relate to writing. The first is the paper project, which will be 40 to 50% of your grade, depending upon what class you are in. The other is a series of writing exercises that we will do either in class or online. Let's begin by talking about the paper project and getting an overview of what the project involves. Everything that I'm going to be talking about is in your syllabus. This is your syllabus, right? You turn to page 15, and that's when you start to get a description of the paper project. 40% of your grade will come from a major paper project where you write a first draft and a second draft. Each of these will work slightly differently than they do in other courses, so you need to pay attention here. The first draft of the paper will be 1,600 to 2,000 words long. I go by words, not by pages, so you can't screw around with the formatting to make your paper appear longer. If in Word you want to know how long a document is, you can use this function here. There's a toolbar. Spread it out. And you can just hit recount, and that will give you, here, this is an 11,000 word document. If you don't see the toolbar, you can go to View, Toolbars, and Word Count. And if that's checked, the Word Count toolbar should be available. If you are in OpenOffice, you can get a word count by going to Tools and Word Count, right there. So again, this is an 11,000 word document. For the second draft, you will be asked to change or add 600 words to your document. I'll talk about what that means in a bit. Right now, I just want to finish with giving you an overview of the project. So, in this paper, you will take a stand on a philosophical issue and defend it. You will not be graded on the stand you take, right? So you can argue that shame is more important than guilt. You can argue that morality is impossible without God. You can argue that murder is fun. The point is that you will be judged not on the stand you take, but on the quality of the argument you give in support of that stand. So this is an argument paper and not a research paper. That means that all of the information you need should be in your textbook. If you want to bring in outside information because you're already familiar with it, please feel free, but you are not required to bring in outside information. Okay. The other thing is that your argument has to be original. That is, I want to hear reasons to believe your thesis that are not already outlined in the book. Now, I know there's nothing really new under the sun. You're not going to have something original. It just has to be original in the sense that it wasn't given to you in the textbook. Okay. Other things to note. The main thing I am looking for in this paper is simplicity and clarity. Don't worry too much about being formal. I have no problem, for instance, with people using I in their writing. It is much easier if you're arguing for a thesis to say things like, I believe this, rather than creating complicated or affected sentences to avoid saying, you avoid using the first person pronoun. So the first draft is due Friday, March 18th, and the second draft is due Monday, May 2nd. That is the day that you would have had your final exam. A quick note about word processors. Earlier, when getting a word count in your document, I showed you how to get a word count in Microsoft Word and in OpenOffice. These are the two word processors that this class supports, as it were. They're the ones that I can help you with. Microsoft Word is the most commonly used word processor out there. Not everyone uses it, though, because it costs a fair amount of money. Some people who want to avoid spending money will use Microsoft's free word processor, Works. I do not recommend that, and I can't help you if you have any technical problems with Works. Works is just designed to annoy you to the point where you decide to upgrade to Microsoft Word. If you want a free word processor, I strongly recommend OpenOffice, which you can get here at openoffice.org. OpenOffice is free, open source software. It does absolutely everything the full version of Word can do. It runs a little slower on my machine and some other people's machines, but it is in fact completely free. When you submit files to me, please submit them as either Microsoft Word documents or OpenOffice documents. Selecting a topic. This is probably the most important part of this project. This is where you either get off on the right foot or the wrong foot, and it should be something that you're worried about now. The main thing that you need to worry about in selecting a topic is that you have a thesis that is worth arguing over. A lot of people, when they select topics, rather than thinking of an argument paper, they think of some sort of report where you're just conveying information. And so rather than having a thesis, they have some kind of topic sentence, which just says what the report is going to be about. Your thesis needs to be stronger than that. Your thesis needs to make a claim about the subject. Furthermore, it needs to be what people are willing to argue about. So if you go to your syllabus, you'll see that I've got examples of bad thesis statements and improved thesis statements. So one simple example is to give a topic statement for a report rather than a thesis statement for an argument paper. A topic statement might read something like this. Shame and guilt are different moral emotions that affect different people differently. That was actually a real thesis statement from a student paper. Now, you don't want to just describe shame and guilt. You want to make a claim about them. So, for instance, you could say, shame and guilt are both equally necessary for moral competence. If you say this, you are siding with philosophers like Rawls and against Ruth Benedict, the anthropologist. The thing to note here is that there's someone who disagrees with you. You don't write argument papers about topics that everyone agrees on, right? There's no point in writing a paper on forgiveness and just saying, forgiveness is good. Almost everyone believes that forgiveness is good. You need to talk about when to forgive. And that's where the real controversy occurs. This can be hard for a lot of students because we naturally shy away from controversy. We don't like to argue about ethics because, it ruins friendships and that sort of thing. However, you can't do philosophy without sparking some controversy. So we're going to go ahead and try to argue for controversial theses. Now, if you go down to the next page of the syllabus, you will see that I suggest about 8 paper topics. These are all selected from the first 3 chapters of your textbook, the ones that you would have read by the time the first draft is due. There are actually paper topics on every page of the book. This is an incredibly rich book full of interesting ideas. So you do not have to restrict yourself to one of the 8 suggested topics. Is it really 8? 9. Ooh, look, 9 suggested topics. You don't have to restrict yourself to one of those. However, if you do write on something different, I ask that you email me about it first and just clear it with me. Be sure it's okay. Next, let's take a look at writing the first draft. Once you have selected a topic and devised a thesis statement that is worth arguing over, you will write up the full paper. The first draft is due March 18th. This should be a complete 1,500 to 2,000 word draft of the paper. Although you are writing another draft, you should pretend that this is the final product. There are two kinds of problems that happen when students are given a paper assignment with a first draft and a second draft. Either they put all the work into the first draft and then just move one comma or change some spelling and call that the second draft. Or alternately, they ignore the first draft and just submit a second draft. This assignment is structured so that you cannot make life easy on yourself that way. I am trying to challenge you. So the idea is that you will write a first draft, which is as good as you can possibly make it. And then I'm going to turn around and ask you to do even better. I am trying to challenge you. I actually believe that you are capable of writing a better paper than you think you are. Given the right feedback, you will be able to make the second paper even better than the first, even though you did everything even though you gave the first paper your all. So, let me just give you a few details about how to submit the paper. First of all, I want you to submit it to Angel online as an attachment. So you go here, this is the Angel page for the course. This is the folder where the drop boxes are kept. You go in here, you go to First Draft Dropbox, and you will see this screen here. Now, sometimes students, rather than submitting the paper as an attachment, will try to cut and paste the entire paper into this field here that's labeled Message. Don't do that. For starters, it will screw up your formatting. Second, I may not even realize that you have submitted the paper. Go to Attachments, click on that, and then find your file name here. When you're naming your file, please include your last name, the name of the assignment, and a 1 or 2 word description of the topic as in your file name. Now, most people, when they're just keeping track of these things on their own hard drive, will just write Philosophy Paper 1. If everyone submits papers to me that say Philosophy Paper 1, I can't tell the difference. So this is the sort of thing I want to see. Doe, Jane, outline forgiveness. Or, Joe, Dane, Doe, Jane, rough draft, moral foundations. Something like that. Jane Doe here is where you're supposed to put in your own name. Please do not send me a file that actually says Jane Doe on it. Okay. In addition to your electronic copy, you will need to bring a hard copy to class. And that's a paper that will be read by your peers. That's a part of a peer response project. The instructions for that will be given in class. All of that is a part of your exercise grade, not a part of the paper project grade. Next up is the paper rewrite. Second draft. Once you have written your paper and received a grade on it, I will ask you to rewrite it. When I submit your first draft back to you, I will have given you extensive comments on how I think the paper should be improved. The rewrite is due at the end of the term, May 2nd. You will also have comments from another student to help you with the rewrite. Primarily on the rewrite, you will be graded on how well you respond to criticism. That is, how well you improve the paper. The absolute quality of the final paper is only a secondary concern in grading. Now, the thing I'm going to ask you to do is change 600 words in your document. This is to avoid that thing where you just sort of move a few sentences around and call it done. Let me talk about changing words here. Let's go over here. Imagine this is your paper. This is one of the sample papers from the paper grading exercise. As you can see right now, it has 1,879 words in it. suppose you want, now I'm asking you to change or add 600 words. How do you do that? Well, you can keep track of the amount of changes that go on in your document using the Microsoft Track Changes feature. Let me show you how to use that. I am asking you to use it. You go to, well, the easiest thing to do is to hit Control, Shift, and E, and you'll get this toolbar here. You can also get that toolbar just by going to View and Toolbars and Reviewing, right? And be sure that's checked. Once you have that toolbar, you want to be sure that this box is highlighted. If that box is highlighted, then every change you make to the paper will be tracked. So watch. Suppose I wanted to change my title here. I could go, "This is a much better title," right? So the old title is crossed out, the new title appears. This would count as giving you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new words, right? So anytime you change a word or add a word, that goes to your that contributes to your 600 word total. So for instance, instead of saying human beings' feelings, you might say people's feelings. That counts as a new word. To determine how many words you have added to the document, I'm simply going to go through and find all the underlined stuff. I'm going to cut and paste them into a new document and run a word count in that. As a general rule, the actual word count for the new paper isn't as important as what content you've changed. If I'm reading your paper and I get the sense that you haven't improved things much, that is a trigger for me. Then I'll go and see if you've actually, how many words you've changed. I almost always find that if there's something missing content-wise, if there's something that should have been changed, that is reflected in the word count. You also are under the number of words that you should have changed. Let me also show you how to do the track changes feature in OpenOffice. Okay, suppose this is your paper in OpenOffice. Again, if you go to Tools, Word Count, you can see the current word count of the paper. This one has 1,500 words. If you want to you need to keep track of your changes. So what you should do is go to Edit, Changes, Record, and then Edit, Changes. You should be sure that Show is in place. Show is checked. Now, if you change things, right, so instead of saying virtue, you might want to say, I don't know, vice. As you can see, it does the same thing that Microsoft Word did. That is, it crosses out the old word and writes the new word. Again, this would count as one new word toward your word count of 600 new words. Okay, so that's the paper project. Next up, we're going to look at the writing exercises that go with the paper project. We're going to have 3 in this class. There'll be an exercise on sentences, an exercise on paragraphs, and an exercise on entire papers. For the latter, you will be asked to grade papers, actual papers that were submitted to the class, to see if your grade approximates the one that the student actually received. When you log on to Angel, it should look like this. If you go to the Lessons tab, go to Section 2, Autonomy, Strength of Will, go to Online Exercises, you will find 3 links marked Online 5, Fixing Sentences. There are actually 2 ways you can do this exercise. The first link is to the interactive online version. The second 2 links are to Word documents that you can just print up and do at home and then bring to me in class. The first document, it just has the questions. The second document has my suggested rewrites for the sentences in the exercise. I recommend that you not look at my suggested rewrites until you've gone through and tried to rewrite all the sentences yourself. Now, let me just show you what the online interactive version of the exercise looks like. You should get something that looks like this. So, this area in gold and black is the exercise embedded in Angel. The instruction page comes up first. What you're going to see is that there will be a series of sentences, and you need to rewrite each of them for length, clarity, and grammatical correctness. Also, you should write the name of any mistakes that you think the writer is making. Just try and explain what you think is wrong with the sentence and why you made the changes you made. When you rewrite the sentence, click on Check Answer for my suggested rewrite. I'll show you what that looks like. So here's your first sentence here. It is from a paper about stem cell research. The debate over human embryonic stem cell research does not lie in whether or not it will save lives. Rather, the controversy with human embryonic stem cell research mainly refers to whether or not it is ethical to use embryos for stem cell research. It should be clear to you that there's something wrong with this sentence. So you can rewrite your sentence in the space below. When you click on Check Answer, you'll get my suggested rewrite. You can explain the mistakes made by the sentence in this square here, and you click here to get my suggested answer. Now, when you submit your answers, the machine will tell you that you're wrong because your answer does not match mine word for word. Don't worry about that. That's just the computer being stupid. There was no way to program it so that it could identify good sentences and bad sentences. Some machines can actually do that, but not this one. So in any case, it just checks to see that your sentence matches mine exactly. It says you're wrong, but don't worry because you get full credit simply for submitting an answer. So once you're through with this exercise, you should be able to go to the reports page and see that you have 100 points for this exercise. To give you a sense of what I'm looking for in these sentence rewrites, I'm going to walk you through a rewrite of one sentence that's not in the exercise, but is similar to many of the sentences in the exercise. So here's your sentence. Currently, Alabama law, like all 50 states in the United States, allows the refusal of extraordinary and even ordinary care, which is a respective autonomy that is similar to the way Oregon respects autonomy in the assisted suicide legislation. Thus, the Oregon law can be rightly implemented. Now, what is wrong with this sentence? This sentence is wordy. It's too long. It packs too many ideas into one sentence. Mentally, I refer to these kinds of sentences as Mojo Jojo sentences. Mojo Jojo was a cartoon supervillain from a show in the 90s, which was probably before most of your time. However, he was a brilliant cartoon supervillain, and everyone should know about him. Here's an example of Mojo Jojo.
Is that your final answer?
Is that my final answer? Yes, that is the question, isn't it? Whether this answer that I am thinking about choosing is the one that I will say is the final one. Which is to say that you have asked me a question about this answer being the one that I will ultimately pick as the response that I am sure of, for it is the one that I have deliberated on.
You do have one lifeline left, Mojo Jojo. Would you like to use it?
Mojo must think about this. For if I use this lifeline that is my last, then I will have no more lifelines. And that will mean that in the future, when I might want to use this lifeline, then it will no longer be available to me, as I would already have used it now when you asked me if I wanted to choose to use a lifeline.
Perhaps someone you'd like to call.
Call? Yes, call. I could call someone on the telephone, and it would ring at their house, and they would pick it up, and then I would ask them the answer to this question that I am thinking about and unable to answer on my own, despite my superior intellect and desire to...
Jeez Louise, can you believe this guy? All time already, for crying out loud.
I particularly like the part where he says, I could call someone, and it would ring in the house. Mentally, when I get sentences like this from students, I start reading them to myself in a Mojo Jojo voice. So, currently, under Alabama law, like all 50 states in the United States, it has the exact same kind of redundancy, right? Information is being put in that tells the reader nothing. All 50 states in the United States. So, what can we do to improve this sentence? Well, first we can start cutting things out. This first part here, that's now in red, needs to be seriously cut back. You can begin by getting rid of the all 50 states in the United States. Also, Alabama law is redundant. So we could say, currently, Alabama allows the refusal of extraordinary and even ordinary care. You can also get rid of the currently. So, for the first clause, we are eliminating redundant words. This is a problem described in this book here, Quick Access. If you have taken Comp 1, you were probably asked to purchase Quick Access, which is just a general handbook for writers. You probably sold it back and don't remember much of what's in it. However, in outlining problems with the sentences, I'm going to be referring back to the things you learned in your composition course, just to be sure that all of the courses here at LCCC are on message, right? So the problem with the first part of that sentence was that there were redundant words. This is described in your Troika and Hesse book on page 391 as unplanned redundancy. Troika and Hesse point out that sometimes redundancy can be very effective rhetorically, but the kind of redundancy we're looking at here doesn't accomplish anything, so it has to be deleted. Okay. The first clause also uses the passive voice inappropriately. Alabama allows the refusal of. Who's doing the refusing? Let's get this straight here. By the way, we're talking about euthanasia here, and this is a paper from my medical ethics class, and it's describing circumstances in which you can deny a patient care to allow them to die more quickly. So, what we should say is that Alabama, like all 50 states, allows patients to refuse extraordinary and even ordinary care. You can see how this sentence is tightening up as we speak. Okay, so this is how it would read, right? Next up comes this clause, which is a respect of autonomy. This is what Troika and Hesse call a predication error. You can just tell it sounds wrong. Which the refusal is a respect? Well, or maybe it's the law that's a respect. In general, how do you talk about a respect? It's awkward. So we cut that out, and then we add out of respect for autonomy. That is, after all, what Alabama does. Out of respect for patient autonomy, patients are allowed to refuse extraordinary or even ordinary care. There. So we put that in. That is similar to the way Oregon respects autonomy in the assisted suicide legislation. Again, we are jamming too many ideas into one sentence. We want to delete that, and then just start a whole new sentence. Put a period after autonomy, and then say, Oregon's assisted suicide legislation is similarly motivated by respect for autonomy. Put that in. And then finally, we've got this last thing at the end. The Oregon law can be rightly implemented. We can turn that into a clause added to our new second sentence, and therefore can be rightly implemented. The author here is actually making a very good point. and is producing a solid argument. But the good argument was hidden under all of that verbiage. And what we really need, once we state things clearly, though, we can see that she has a good argument here for applying a law that's in Oregon to Alabama, which is where I was teaching when I received this paper. So, this is the final sentence. As you can see, the sentence winds up shrinking. It winds up shrinking by 10 words. It's not much, but it definitely becomes clearer. As a general rule, generally, the shorter sentences are going to be clearer. That was an example of a badly done sentence and how you can improve it. Now your job is to go to the sentence exercise on Angel and begin to enter your own improved sentences for the sentences that in the exercise. So here's sentence 1, again, the sentence about embryonic stem cell research. You can write out your sentence separately, maybe in Word or on a piece of paper, and then type it into that small box that the software makes available to you. And then when you click Check Answer, you'll get my suggested rewrite. And if you go down here, just to reiterate, you can enter your description of what's wrong with the sentence in the lower box. And if you click Check Answer, you will get my description along with a reference to some part of Troika and Hesse. So great. Next up, let's look at the paragraph exercise. The paragraph exercise is going to ask you to rewrite the opening paragraph of a student's paper, again, to improve it for clarity, length, and grammatical correctness. Before we do that, though, I want to run through some of the purposes of an opening paragraph in the kind of paper you are going to be writing. You are going to be writing an argument paper. That is, your goal is to state a thesis and defend it, to explain why someone should agree with you on a controversial issue in philosophy. The opening paragraph of an argument paper actually has a pretty narrow purpose. It's the main goal, the main thing that you want to do in your opening paragraph is to state your thesis. You are giving an argument. Your thesis is the thing you are arguing for. You need to be sure that the reader knows exactly what you are arguing for. The second most important function of the opening paragraph is to provide needed context. This might include technical definitions. In philosophy, we often use words in specialized ways, and it's important to let the reader know what those specialized ways are. So, for instance, you might be writing on guilt and shame, and you might need to fill the reader in on the technical definitions of guilt and shame from Benedict. Other background information might be important here. Another thing you're going to want to do in your opening paragraph is preview the argument. You're going to state your thesis, explain exactly what it is you're trying to show, and then give just a preview of the reasons why the reader should agree with you. You cannot state your full argument in the opening. The argument should take up the whole paper, but a little preview is helpful. Finally, you should explain the importance of the topic. In other sorts of writing, explaining the importance of the topic or making the topic seem exciting or providing a hook is emphasized as an extremely important element. For the kind of writing we're doing in this class, you can assume that the audience is motivated at least a little to read the paper. And your main job is to state the thesis, background information, and preview argument. Explaining the importance and motivating the issue is of lesser importance. Having talked about the importance of different parts of the opening paragraph, Let's now talk about how you signal that importance to the reader. On the left-hand side of your screen, you will see a markup of a standard standard first page of a paper. Notice that I have included a title on it. I am a firm believer that titles are good. They help you as a writer focus your thoughts, and they let the reader know what to expect. Now, after that, I've got some dummy text, and I've highlighted in yellow parts of the text that stand out to the reader. As a general rule, the beginning and ends of things stand out, and towards the middle, people are drifting off. Basically, you're paying attention, then you get bored, then you see a break, and that perks your attention up again. So these are the positions. I've labeled them power positions, where you want to put important text. So a standard thing to do for undergraduate essays is to make your thesis the last sentence of the first paragraph. The reason for that is that this is a power position and your thesis is important. Scientific papers, by contrast, frequently have their thesis, the thing that they say they have demonstrated with this experiment, as the title of their paper. That is another very good place to put a thesis. The opening sentence is a good place to put a thesis, especially if you have a thesis that can be understood without any background information, right? So all of these are the power positions, and the main thing you should think about is putting things that you think are important in power positions. All right, having outlined that, let's look at the exercise. Paragraph exercise is a paragraph taken from a real a real student paper. This is the paper version of the exercise, the hard copy that I would give out in class if we were doing this in class. And so there is the opening paragraph of the paper. I want you to imagine that a friend has given you this paper and asked you to help her improve it. So you can edit the paragraph, rewrite or delete sentences. You can also suggest broader changes, and these are probably necessary. Asking the writer to refocus the paragraph more, clarify the thesis, delete large chunks of the opening. These are actually the comments that I made on that student's paper, and this is the sort of comments that you will receive on your paper. As you can see, I've got comments out in balloons on the side here. I also have deleted sentences. Your comments will not match mine exactly, and your changes will not match mine exactly. However, these will give you an idea as to what I expect out of a paper and the opening paragraph of a paper. Now, if you're doing the online version of this exercise, you'll be going here to Angel, and this is what the Online 6 folder looks like. This is Online Exercise 6, paragraph writing. Here and here are the two Word document versions of the exercise. If you want to do it online, you click here to get the online version. Here we go. This is the online version. It's got the same instructions under the black and gold banner there. And for this version, the comments that I made, rather than being in balloons on the side, are now in mouse over texts. So if you put if you put your mouse over the sentence in blue, you'll see my rewrite there, or here you'll see my comments, that sort of thing. Again, you are not going to mimic my comments exactly. This will just give you a sense of what I did. Now, what you need to do is put your rewrite of the paragraph or your comments to your imagined friend in this field, and then you can just go ahead and click Finish. Don't worry about your name or identifier. I haven't updated that. It should still give you credit automatically for finishing the exercise. You also, though, have to hit Finish here. Okay, last up is the paper grading exercise. This exercise is actually not in the section 2, is not in section 2 on strength of will. It won't be due till a little bit later, so it's in section 3 on virtue. So to find the paper grading exercise, you go here to section 3 on virtue, you click online exercises, you click outline online 8 paper exercises, and you'll find this. Now, unlike the other ones, there's no purely online version of this. This will all be done with Word documents. What I've got here are 4 sample student papers. One called Complete Virtue, one on Free Will, one called Moral Curiosity, and one on Shame and Guilt. One of these papers is an A paper, one is a B paper, one is a C paper, one is a D paper. It is your job to figure out which is which. So download these files, and you can go here. Oh, I'm sorry. Download these files. You'll open them up, and they look like this, right? Read all of them and decide which, and put them in order. Decide which is the best, which is the worst. Then pick one of those papers to make detailed comments on, as if you were the professor grading the paper. Send your rankings to me, as well as your the paper that you marked up with comments, and you will get credit for the exercise. If you want to go back online, you can go here, and here it says graded sample papers with comments. These are the actual comments that I gave to these students on their papers, and you can see what grades I gave them. Great, that's it. Thank you for watching.